Okay, so welcome to the 8-day empathy challenge. Now, the only thing that's required to participate in this challenge is you must have your empathy scorecard. So for those of you who said that you were in, let's start the challenge. Now, this is an 8-day challenge, but this is not 8 consecutive days. What I mean by that is I'm going to give you a challenge today, and you will have time later today or tonight, depending on who you choose to do this challenge with, or you will have tomorrow to do the challenge. And then the next day, I will come and give you the second challenge in the 8-day challenge. Now, the reason why the challenge is 8 days is because if you have your empathy scorecard, you know that there's 8 sections on the empathy scorecard. And each section, I'm going to give you a challenge, right? And this is a challenge for a reason. So it's not meant to be easy. It's meant to challenge how you engage and how you think about empathy. So if you have your empathy scorecard, let's get started on what the first challenge is. And we know that the first area on the empathy scorecard is active listening. Now, for those of you who have done your empathy scorecard, you know that you have 8 questions within each section, right? I want you to take the 2 questions for which you scored the lowest in that section. Find the 2 questions for which you scored the lowest. Maybe you scored a 3 or a middle or lower. You're going to find the 2 questions you scored the lowest, and these are the 2 questions you're going to use as a part of your challenge. So for active listening, I want you to find somebody, whether that is your spouse, your kids, your mom, your dad, maybe a coworker, or even a friend, for which conversations are difficult, right? Either you guys both end up walking away from the conversation, or you feel like the person didn't really listen to you, or that you didn't really quite hear what they said. I want you to find that person, right? Or it can be your children, right? As parents, sometimes we hear our kids, but we didn't really listen to what our kids said to us. So the 2 questions for which you scored the lowest, these are going to be the things that you're going to focus on with this interaction around active listening. So I want you to find the person, spouse, partner, coworker, friend, mom, dad, whoever. When you are in conversations with them, you leave frustrated, you leave angry, you feel like they really don't hear you, and the conversation just never goes anywhere. I want you to find that person. I want you to engage in a conversation. You can talk about anything. You can decide you're talking about politics, or you want to talk about religion, or you want to talk about your love life, or you want to talk about whatever the conversation is. Find that person, and you're going to take the 2 questions that you scored the lowest in this area, and those are the 2 things you're going to focus the most on during that conversation. So for instance, if I scored really low in how well did I repeat back what somebody said to me so that they know that I understood what they said. When I'm having that interaction, let's just say the person I'm talking to is my cancer baby, right? Y'all know he talks to me all the time. So let's just say Logan comes in and he's talking to me, right? And I'm hearing him, but I'm not really listening to him, right? And I never repeat back what he said, so I'm sure that I understood what he said. Like, I'm not really engaged in the conversation. If Logan was going to be the person that I was going to have that conversation with, when I'm in conversation with him, the 2 areas I scored the lowest in, or the 2 questions I had the lowest score, I would be really focused on how well I did those 2 things in that conversation with Logan. Okay? Everybody clear on what the assignment is? Okay. Now, here's the things I want you to focus on when you do this challenge. I want you to focus on how well did you do in the 2 questions, or the focus area, that how well did you do in that conversation? And did you notice how the person was responding to you in that conversation? So if I was talking to Logan, I would pay attention to how well he responded to me repeating back to him what he said, so that I understood what he said, and it was clear that we both understood what was happening in this conversation. I want you to notice if the person that you're having the conversation with seemed to be a little bit more relaxed because you were really actively listening to them, if they seem to be wanting to engage more in conversation with you, or if they say, this was a really good conversation, I wasn't expecting it to go that well, but I want you to pay attention to how they respond to that conversation with you. This is why it's called the empathy challenge. So don't go find somebody that you really get along with, that you have great conversations with. I want you to find somebody where talking to them is hard. Having a conversation with them is hard. And the goal here is that you actively listen. And I want you to also think about what you got out of this conversation differently from following the 2 prompts that you chose to engage in this conversation. All right, so this is the challenge for January 1st, 2025, and then today's Wednesday. Friday, I'll come back, and you guys can tell me in the comment section, how did it go? If you make content on TikTok, it'd be great if you can make a video saying how that conversation went for you. What did you learn? And truly actively listening to somebody else's perspective. Remember, this is not about agreeing or not agreeing. I just want you to get in the practice to actively listen to people whose opinion is different than yours, or somebody who's, when conversation is happening with this person, you find it difficult. In part, I think that makes it difficult for us to have conversation with people for whom we disagree is that whether you know it or not, you're spending most of that conversation listening to rebuttal than listening to understand. That's the challenge. Day one. Let's go.